Welcome back. So in this last video, I want to talk about JSON. So JSON, if you're not familiar with it, this is not going to be a comprehensive introduction. The HTTP section of this course goes into more detail, but it stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's just another data format, like CSV. The whole idea is that it's a way of representing data. And initially, it was created to represent JavaScript objects. It was used with JavaScript, a way of sending, just like with Pickle, where we're taking Python objects and sending them, in our case, to a file and then back. JSON was created to help us send JavaScript code from one computer to another over the web, send messages, send data back and forth. It's now grown very, very popular. It's not only used with JavaScript, even though it's still called JavaScript Object Notation. It's so popular, in fact, Python actually has a module called JSON that we can import. And it provides functions to encode and decode Python to JSON, to go both directions. On the docs, you can read about it. The two functions I'll point out are json.dumps. So for example, if we call this right here, set it to a variable, I'll just call it j equals json.dumps, and then I print j. What this will do is take Python and then turn it into JSON formatting, which just means, I believe, double quotes. Things like none will be changed to null. I think tuples don't exist in JSON. So let me just see what it does. Let's just look at the result. And there we go. So double strings everywhere, no tuples anymore, and none has been replaced by null. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. It's just converting this Python data into JSON. So then we could save this to a file, or we could create an API with it that a JavaScript front end could consume, or a Java backend or a Node backend. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it's not JavaScript specific, but there are rules we have to abide by. And I'm not going to go into them because json.dumps will take care of it. What this allows us to do is to take a Python object and turn it into JSON, and then we could save it to a file by just doing, a file.write using json.dumps. And that works if we're working with built-in types, like we have here, tuples and lists and dictionaries. But if we're trying to do an arbitrary custom class, like we did with the Pickle example, if we had a simple class like this cat here, if I wanted to turn this into JSON, there's no easy way. It doesn't really know what to do. What we could call is make an instance of cat like this. Let's go with C equals cat. Name is Charles and breed is Tabby, like that. And I could call, let me copy this line and comment one out, json.dumps c.double_dict. And if we look at that, we get a dictionary representation, and then it's turned into JSON, which looks basically, I think it looks exactly the same. We have double quotes, and there may have been single quotes. Nope, it was all double quotes. So this is one approach. And again, the whole thing that I'm trying to solve or explain here is if you like the idea of pickling data, and you like getting it into a file, and then magically getting it back out without having to do any work other than calling a line of code, but you don't want that data to be stored in such a obfuscated, ugly way. You want to be able to look at it or use it later somewhere else. Well, you could use JSON, but unfortunately, this isn't really going to cut it for us. Instead, I'll show you something called JSON Pickle. And this is a module or a library that someone wrote. It's not a built-in module. A developer wrote this, and the idea is that it's basically like Pickle, except it works with JSON. So it serializes and deserializes complex Python objects to and from JSON. All we have to do is, we have to install it first with pip, and there's instructions down here. So let's just run python 3-m pip install JSON Pickle. There we go. Now let's make a new file called jsonpickle.py. We import JSON Pickle, and what do the docs say? All we have to do, we make an object, and then we call jsonpickle.encode and jsonpickle.decode. Cool. So let's just copy our cat class again, like this, and let's encode C, this cat right here. And if I just print frozen, let's see what we get. So Python 3, JSON Pickle. Here we go. So it's a little more complicated. You can see there's, name and breed, but then it also has this type, where it's saying it's a Py object and the name of it is main.cat. And that's useful because now if I stored that in a file, so we could do that really quickly, I'll just fast forward through it. Okay, I'm back. All I did was open a file in write mode. I ran the same line of code. I'm calling it frozen, and I'm just writing that into the file. So if we run it now, we should have a new file created, cat.json. If we look at that, it should be exactly the same as what we saw printed out. But now here's the cool thing, is that I can go back in here and go the opposite direction. So if I'll comment C out, and I'll just duplicate this down here, but we're going to open it in read mode now, and instead of frozen, we'll call it unfrozen, jsonpickle.decode. And what are we going to decode? Well, we need to read the file first. So we'll just call it content equals file.read, like that. Unfrozen is jsonpickle.decode contents. And then let's just print unfrozen. Unfrozen. Did I spell that weird? And let's see if it works. Cool. You can see what we got back was a cat. It reconstructed our cat from the dead, basically took this JSON and turned it into an actual cat object. So we can do things like, oh, we don't have any methods, huh? That doesn't help us. If we did have methods, we'd be able to call them. And it's just name and breed for this example. But it works the exact same way as pickling something, but the difference, aside from having to download an actual library and not using a built-in one like Pickle, the main difference is that look at how our data is stored. It takes up more space, that's definitely true, but we can look at this and we could send this to another language and parse this and use it if we needed to. So two different approaches. Again, what I showed you first was just plain JSON, and it's kind of limited in what you can do as far as storing custom classes and objects. But this JSON pickle that somebody, guy, girl, a team, who knows, someone wrote and published is really pretty nifty. It allows us to pickle like we're using just the regular pickle, except using JSON with a single line. Well, 2 lines. Pretty badass. Awesome. We are done with this file IO section. Oof, we saw a lot of different ways of working with files, jam-packed, maybe not the most engaging thing ever, but we started with just reading and writing, very important, this sort of thing, file.read, file.write, but then we also saw CSV, and we saw JSON and pickling. Whew, I need a break, need a long break.